Okay, this response has been a long time coming. Hopefully I will be able to post it before the end of the night, along with the other video about clearing up the whole Vedic thing. But this is going to be more or less addressed to this idea of the anti-feminists. And first of all, the reason that this even happened, and I meant to reply to Ruby a lot sooner than this, except for things got crazy. We were discussing sort of how to stay safe if you're a woman from the sociopaths that can be out there, and I think that she and I are on the same page on this in terms of you really can't totally protect yourself. As we were talking about, I named a few individuals, and she talked about a particularly odious individual by the name of Paul Bernardo. And as I was reading the comments on her video, a lot of people, and particularly in Ontario, remember this guy. I remember him too. And by the way, Ruby, I actually saw it on Autopsy also. That's where I first became aware of this guy. And a lot of the people that were replying to her video remember this guy. This was a bad guy. To really understand how bad, you need to know the real particulars of the case, including seeing some of the interviews. And there's particularly the one where they're talking to Carla about what was done to one of the victims has always bothered me so immensely I can't watch it again. I don't know why it bothers me so immensely, but it's impossible for me to not watch it and just get very, very, very angry and upset, and it's literally physically hard for me to watch it. So this was a bad guy, and as we were trying to point out, there is no safe haven totally for anyone. In this case, we were discussing women and trying to do things not to be such targets because, according to some of these idiots, these anti-feminists that we are. By the way, I like that term a lot better than hyper-masculinist. I think you, James, has piped me to the punch on this one. I think we got to start using his term because I think it's better. So anti-feminist, I think, is a better term we'll use. But these anti-feminists are claiming that somehow what's taking... We were just describing that people can't be safe even in their own homes from these sociopaths. If they want to come in, they're going to come in. It doesn't matter what they're wearing. And this is how most of these things happen. Most of these attacks happen this way. And the point was we were trying to think of ways to make people safer, but there's no way to be fully safe. And this discussion that was about a legitimate problem, and in this case, what makes a psychopath and what makes them target people, because it's not dress. It's not somebody dressing provocatively. It doesn't, that rarely ever triggers it. It's usually not that. So this idea that somehow dressing a certain way provokes this kind of an assault is absurd, and we were trying to have this legitimate, honest discussion about this when Ruby gets attacked by these frickin' anti-feminists. Ape kills snake. Need I say more? And they seem to be of the opinion that somehow, and they didn't suggest this to me, I don't know why they didn't suggest it to me, they didn't seem to... They weren't getting what was being said. They said that she was attacking men and translating this into the idea of making men into these brutish ogres. No. No. No, no, no. I want you chuckleheads to listen very clearly to what is being discussed. Now, I feel like an idiot saying this anyway because I already know Ruby knows exactly what I'm talking about. We were talking about serial killers and psychopaths and rapists. It doesn't matter what sex they are. The majority of them happen to be men, regardless of that. Why that is, I don't necessarily know, and I don't know if there's a great answer for it. I have suspicions it has to do with biology. This does not make all men prone to violence in that way. In fact, the vast majority are not prone to violence in this way. That was what was so disturbing about it to us. The fact, as I said, and as she observed also, that the vast majority of we men can take rejection. We can accept not being accepted by a woman. We can shake it off, or we can accept a divorce or a breakup. We can shake it off, and we are basically okay at the end. Sure, you carry a little scar with you from it, but that's inevitable. That's the risk you take by opening yourself up to another human being. It doesn't matter if you're male and female, male and male, female and female. It's a risk you take when feelings become involved, when genuine emotion and attachment becomes involved. But the vast majority of all human beings, regardless of sex or actual gender, in terms of what they're attracted to, regardless of what that is, the vast majority of us do not freak out and try to kill dozens of people who happen to look like the person that upset us, as Ted Bundy did. That was the question that was concerning us, all right? That's what we were trying to understand and figure out. Why certain people do this. Yes, the vast majority of them are men, and as she's already pointed out in another video, this is set aside this anti-feminist crap and accept the reality that this is true. This does not condemn all male members. Okay, that was a wrong way of putting it. Now the juvenile snickers. Stop that. Stop that. I know all of you are out there laughing right now. This is very serious. All members of the male part of our species are not condemned by that one fact alone. Being male does not inherently mean you're going to victimize somebody. But the likelihood of someone being victimized by a male, even another male, is extremely high. Your buddy Rocking Mr. E actually proved my point in one of his videos. He claimed that there were 160,000 sexual assaults in prisons, and of course he doesn't give us any information of where he got the information. For all we know, he got it from those goddamn MRA sites that often spout off a bunch of nonsense. So we don't know if that number's legitimate. So let's just assume for a minute, suspend reality, and say that it is. Those 160,000 sexual assaults in the prison system are between men. Other men attacking other men. So he proves my point. It is much more likely that someone, anyone, is to be victimized by another man. A man is more likely to be victimized by another man. A woman is more likely to be victimized by a man. I'm not concerned with their gender so much as that I believe that in the biological sense, yes, men tend to be built heavier. We tend to be built for competition in terms of for mates and in terms of hunting. All these things are biological things that have happened to us over the course of millions of years. Sexual dimorphism. We are a slightly sexually dimorphic species. That does not insinuate that one is better than the other. It's a biological fact that you can see in almost every human being. Now, because of that, there are different hormone levels. There are different, there are different organs. Testes and ovaries produce different types of hormones. They have different purposes. So that alone can give us an insight into what we're thinking here. These biological differences mostly function as they're meant to function. The male attempts to win the female. If she is receptive to him, he will get lucky. If not, he moves on. Some men, though, are not capable of that moving on step. These are the sociopaths we were talking about. Some people, including women, take it a step further and attack and kill their fellow human beings. Now in nature, and as the Harlow experiment demonstrated, when an animal demonstrates an abnormal aggression towards other animals, they tend to either be killed themselves by the group as a whole or driven out by the group as a whole, and those animals don't survive long. Now, today with modern medicine, prenatal care, things like that, we have a much lower infant mortality rate than in the past. We still have the highest infant mortality rate in the so-called industrialized world of any of the countries, but it's much, much lower. The question is that in the process of becoming an adult, and because the processes are so little understood of what contributes to our personality and what is genes, how much of genetics contributes to who we are, personality-wise and things like that. I don't have a good answer for that because we haven't figured the genetics of it out yet. This is why it's so infuriating to talk to these idiot racists, because they don't understand that we don't have the answer yet. They just assume that their preconceived notion is true and that they already have the answer, and they don't have any evidence to back it up. That's why we think they're morons, and they are morons. It's the same thing here. Something between point A and point B for men who either become relatively normal citizens. I mean, all of us have a little bit of irrationality and silliness in us. There's no question of that. I don't think that's a bad thing. But let's say from your average citizen who has good coping mechanisms and who doesn't go out butchering his neighbors, that person between point A and B for them, from childhood to adulthood, there is a confluence of variables that allow them to stay a well-balanced human being. Now, for the serial killer between point A and B, something between A and B goes wrong. And Ruby talked about this a little bit. She talked about overbearing parents. Extreme religious backgrounds often produce these kind of individuals. Physical abuse, sexual abuse can contribute to these kinds of things. Isolation. And she talked about the bedwetting beyond a certain age, the pyromania, the abuse of animals. These are all indicators of this kind of thing, of sociopathy. Between A and B, between childhood and adulthood, something goes wrong for these people. Male or female, something happens to turn them into what are essentially hunters of their fellow human beings. Now, somebody brought this up. It may have been Ruby who brought this up in her video. It may have been in the comments section, actually. Somebody brought up, I'll just put it this way, somebody brought up the fact that Ted Bundy used a ruse to get a lot of his victims. He pretended to have a broken arm and was trying to load something into his car. And this is something else that you see that's of classic serial killers. They're not really prone for a stand-up fight. Let's put it that way. They're ambush predators. They're stalkers. They wait till people are vulnerable. This is the same thing you see with guys like the flashlight rapist, who would wait till people were either going to bed. There was a guy out in, damn it, I can't remember his name. He committed a number of rapes. I don't think he ever killed anybody, thank God, but he committed a number of rapes. But his thing, his first victim was, I think, a 12-year-old or 11-year-old girl that he took right out of her trailer. Others, he would wait until they were in the shower, and after they came out of the shower, he'd attack, and he'd wait until they were most vulnerable. So these individuals, these men in particular, seem to fear direct confrontation. As a matter of fact, the only one I can think of that didn't seem to shy away from it was the Gainesville Ripper, a guy known as, what was his name? Pruitt, I think his name was, Daniel Pruitt. I'll look that up. If that's not right, I'll correct it. You know what, I think this is going to take another video. Yeah, we're going to need another video.